Tom, please tell us something about yourself.
So I'm a senior researcher with about 20 years of experience in academia, and since this year I started my private business, and I also co-founded this foundation, OpenGeoHub.
I want to go in a bit more. Tom, what are your key passions and interests at the moment?
So my key passions actually hasn't changed from last 10 years. My key passion is to enable people to use open source software and to promote open data and use of open data, and to promote a sharing culture, and to promote researchers collaborating jointly, sometimes often without any formal setup.
Tom, you were instrumental in developing the idea for the GeoStat summer schools and for organizing and running all of the subsequent events. Can you give us a little bit of background and history about the GeoStat courses?
Yes, it's a very interesting history. It hasn't started as many things kind of happen and evolve. So it's the same thing with the summer school. It actually started way back in 2004 when I was first time invited by Professor Romic from Faculty of Agronomy in Zagreb to give a short course to PhD students. And I just came back from Netherlands, finishing my PhD relatively quickly. And I think they heard that I had some new things I was working on, and they were just curious if I was willing to share it. So I had a short course in 2004, and this course I still, because it was in Croatian and it's my native language, so I ran it in Croatian, and I had only one guest lecturer. Then in 2007 I was working at European Commission in Italy, and I was approached by Professor Fabio Terribili from the University of Naples, and he was likewise he was interested in he asked me whether I would be interested to run a short course for PhD students at the University of Naples, and maybe also for the broader audience in Italy. Then we discussed it, and we discovered that actually it would be probably more effective if we will run it for the whole European area. And then we publicized it in English, and we gave enough time for people to prepare, and so we got the audience from really all around Europe. And that was the first really international summer school. It was in 2007, and so it kind of went through. And at that time I also started doing some work with Ezer Pebersma, who's now professor at the University of Münster, and also with the Saga.js and the Grass.js developers. And after the 2007 summer school, what happened is that people then asked, they liked the school, and some other people heard about it, and then they asked me when is the next one. And so it kind of became something that we just had to do every year, whether we wanted or not, because just people kept on asking. And then after a few years it became a routine. So we just said, okay, now we have to do it again and again. And so it's been going now for about 12 years. And it turned into so it catches now much broader audience. Yesterday I just heard that there were people here coming all the way from Argentina, from Australia. So it really catches now the world audience, and it became much more significant in sense of the level of people coming. Also the program is richer. We are now with almost 12 lecturers. It's also much more ambitious. We expect that people not only master techniques, but we also have a special prediction competition game, and we give exercises which are much more advanced than they used to be 10 years ago. So things have really evolved from there.
Tom, what kinds of people and venues do you look for when you're considering locations to host future summer schools? What type of venues have worked in the past?
We think a lot about logistical issues, so we like places where we can get like 1 week and be a bit isolated and be in peace, because this summer schools are quite intensive, so the schools don't stop at 4 or 5 o'clock p.m. They sometimes continue to in evening hours, and so we prefer places which are logistically comfortable, where people almost like you get a bit isolated from all the busy life in big cities. So we prefer to go to areas that can provide it. And usually this could be some institutes that are maybe a bit outside of the big cities, so it's still close to some international airport, but a bit outside of the big cities, and also institutes that have in-house accommodation and that have enough facilities to accommodate a group of like 70, 80 people.
And Tom, are the geostat courses affordable, and how do you keep them affordable?
So far we haven't looked for any special funding. I think the key is about organizing a course and making sure that it's that it has a positive output financially. The key is really in planning in advance. That's what I discovered. If you start planning 1.5 year in advance, or at least 1 year in advance, and if you're creative enough, you can find sponsors, and you can also negotiate with the hosting institutions and also if you book everything, if you book hotel in advance and if you make reservations, so you can save a lot of cost there. So we were lucky to be always very creative, and our budgets were they're much lower than some international conference, and they also rely also on the goodwill of the hosting organization to be flexible. And that made us actually have a registration cost relatively low. Even after 12 years, we have a registration cost which are comparable to a registration cost to a 3-day international conference. But we do a 6-day event, so that's the difference.
Tom, based on your continuous involvement in organizing and managing all Geostat summer schools, what are the ways that people who have undertaken to organize and host local events have benefited for themselves or for their institutions?
Well, this is something it's difficult for me to say because I can be only subjective here. My hope is that, and maybe sometimes I do really see it, that people, for example, they really progress in data analysis. They systematically change direction often. Some of the lectures they see here, they say themselves to me, they say that's been an eye-opener for me. So they systematically change the direction, or they systematically learn how to excel faster. They also learn how to network better. They learn also how to ask questions in the community. So they get to connect better. They get to see which is the key literature, which are the key directions. They also get to see what is the future. So many things they wouldn't be able to find out just by looking things on internet or just by asking on some mailing list. So the idea is really to provide this vision to people and to enable them. But then it's up to them. It's a really individual thing. We cannot force anyone to become a master in spatial analysis. We can only hope that they will become masters of spatial analysis.
Tom, how do you see the Geostat summer schools contributing to the activities and the growth of the larger R and OSGeo communities?
Well, it's still a relatively small summer school. It cannot be compared to the USR conferences or any similar large-scale conferences. So our contribution is still relatively small. So I admit it. Nevertheless, I think that our specific niche and something that we're specifically good at is that we try to bring the open source GIS area and also the spatial R area, which I noticed already 10 years ago. I noticed they are still developing quite independently. They're not aware of some duplicated functionality, and they're not aware of possible synergies and possible benefit of combining the two analyses. So just to give you an example, the Saga GIS, Grass GIS open source software, they have now over 500 functions. And then I see in R spatial, I see that there are people developing similar functionality, but sometimes they are made more ad hoc and they are made in more improvised way. So in between, we see that some people have developed packages to link the two open source software environments, and then we see that actually the benefits are to reduce the overlap in developing as much as possible, and then to also see what are the benefits of synergies. And this is our specific niche. We try to bring these two worlds together. As far as I know, there is no comparable conference or a workshop at the moment, at least in Europe. So we have a specific niche, and I think this is original niche, and I think this is our contribution to the field.
Tom, what have you personally gotten out of your efforts to organize and run geostat summer schools over all these years?
One of my favorite writers in our community, Professor Kabakov, once said that I find out about R, and for me, he said, for me the easiest way to learn R was to teach it. And so in my case, it's a similar thing. I kind of also teach R, but I also come here to learn. So, and that's in a way I also enjoy this luxury of having these really top developers coming here for 1 week and having this opportunity to talk with them. So I also profit from just learning. I also profit for when I make some code or when I make some application or make some data. I'm not sure how good is the data. I mean, I think in my head, okay, this could be useful, but only when I expose the data and I give it to the dedicated people that like spend really days and days crunching the data, looking at the code, then the feedback I can get is really fantastic. So this course helped me both personally to evolve, but it also helped me to improve the tools and the data that I develop. Just by exposing it like really to a physically present community, they can give me feedback at hoc or within a few days. So that's what I get from the schools, yes.
And Tom, has organizing these Geostats conference helped you to maintain and even increase or build your networking community?
Absolutely. There's a fantastic networking happening at every summer school, and I am amazed actually how small the world is. Every summer school I discover that the world is smaller and smaller place. And one of our big missions of the OpenGeoHub Foundation is to connect people, and I feel that we are really doing that task. I see people that went to the summer school. They in about 4 or 5 years they will often write their own book. Then they will start their own course in their country, or they will we will call them here to teach. So many of our participants become lecturers. And then all the participants, they spread usually a good word about the school, and we are so lucky to have so many registrations every year without actually having any budget to do any marketing or promotion. We will literally send one email, and we will have sometimes even 2 times more registration than places. So we are lucky to be so well connected and have such a good reputation spread by the participants.
Tom, who would you especially encourage to attend future Geostat summer schools, and why?
So yes, that's a very good question. We call this summer school for PhD students, but actually we also get sometimes senior lecturers and we get the senior researchers, and I would still like to encourage everyone who would like to learn some more systematic ways to do spatial analysis combining R and open source GIS. Anyone that would like to maybe catch up with the most recent developments, and anyone who would like to in a short period of time try to master more advanced spatial analysis, I would like anyone like that to invite to come to this summer school. It doesn't have to be a PhD students. We had a couple of lecturers that were close to retirement, and actually I tell them these are my favorite type of people, because it's never too late to learn and to excel.
Finally, Tom, is there anything you'd like to share with us about this year's summer school, about the venue, about the organizers, and about how it went?
Yes. So this year summer school was held at the IBOT Institute of Botany in south of Prague, so in a little town in proximity of Prague city. It was actually held at this castle that you see behind me. We had a really fantastic host. I was very happy to be here. The venue was really perfect. We had a piece to work on the school and to collaborate. It was a very easy setup also in the sense of accommodation, which was only like 100 meters from the castle. It's also a special place to be inspired by the art and by the architecture. And also the hosts were very, very detailed. They were very good in checking all the most important things that we needed. For example, the quality of Wi-Fi, the quality of video recording. So there was really, I will give it from 0 to 10, I will give it at least 9 stars for organization.
Thanks so much, Tom, and we're looking forward to the next GeoStat Summer School.